The OnePlus Nord 2 has been mired in a lot of controversies, which is probably the reason why OnePlus has launched a new T variant of the phone to soften the backlash a little bit. Now, this T variant called the OnePlus Nord 2T has very few changes and changes that cannot even be called upgrades. Well, my name is Arshad, you're watching Trakin Tech English, and this is our detailed review of the OnePlus Nord 2T and a comparison against the iQOO Neo 6. And you know what? Stay tuned till the end of the video because I have a rant on the new OnePlus. Now, the first thing to note about the Nord 2T is that it has the MediaTek Dimensity 1300 system on chip inside. Now, the difference between the 1300 and the 1200 is not much. The core architecture remains the same. The only difference is that new Hyper Engine 5 technology that you get with it. But it doesn't really make any difference whatsoever in performance. In fact, the Nord 2T's performance is slightly worse off than even the Nord 2. What we notice in our testing is that the Nord 2T throttles a lot. In our 40-core 30-minute CPU throttle test, the OnePlus Nord 2T managed a stability score of 64%, whereas the iQOO Neo 6 managed 78%. Let it be known that we run all of these tests in performance mode to ensure that throttling doesn't happen like it does in the balanced mode. Now, in my favorite 3D Mark Wildlife stress test, which actually stresses the GPU, the OnePlus Nord 2T again falters. We got a stability score of 73.9%, which is well short of the near perfect 99.4% that the iQOO Neo 6 achieves. That's not it. In this test, the Nord 2T also lost more battery life, and the delta between the starting temperature and the ending temperature was much higher too. Now, if you've come this far and if you like the kind of content that we make, which takes a lot of effort and we're doing it for you, don't forget to hit that like button, maybe even comment below for the sake of the YouTube algorithm, and hit that red subscribe button, share this video with your friends, all of that. Now, you might say, Arshad, those are synthetic benchmarks. What about real life gaming? Well, we played a lot of Apex Legends on the OnePlus Nord 2T and the iQOO Neo 6, and in between, the Nord 2T will keep dropping frames compared to the Neo 6, which generally runs stable without throttling. Now, the one reason why the Nord 2T could be doing this was very well elaborated by Rupesh from Rebomb, where he said that maybe, just maybe, OnePlus is throttling the performance to ensure that, you know, the kind of mishaps that happened with the Nord 2, where the phones would keep blasting, won't happen with the Nord 2T. Now, if you're someone who cares about Antutu scores, you should know that the Dimensity 1300 is no match for the Snapdragon 870 either. But in daily performance, the OnePlus Nord 2T is generally very fluid, so is the iQOO Neo 6, but that's generally the case with Oxygen OS and the way it has been optimized for the hardware. It runs very smooth, no problems whatsoever. That's one thing OnePlus always nails. However, if you want a phone for very good gaming and very good performance without throttling, I would say you shouldn't pick up this throttle monster and pick up this iQOO Neo 6 either. OnePlus, there's really no point playing this safe when you know that your competition is doing better. The Nord 2T's only other difference from the Nord 2 is the fact that it now comes with an 80-watt SuperVOOC charging solution. Now, by numbers, it might seem higher than the 65-watt solution in the previous Nord 2, but you know what? In real life, again, it doesn't make much of a difference. In our testing, we got a charging time of 37 to 38 minutes for it to charge from 0 to 100, which is just about the same as 65-watt charging as well, which means this is not an upgrade either. And just for context, the iQOO Neo 6 also comes with an 80-watt charging solution, and it takes about 33 minutes to charge from 0 to 100, which is definitely faster compared to the Nord 2T. Now, battery life, on the other hand, is actually pretty decent considering the fact that OnePlus does throttle. So I got about 6 to 7 hours of screen on time on the 4500 mAh battery inside the Nord 2T compared to same 6 to 7 hours of screen on time on the iQOO Neo 6. So yeah, you get about similar performance. But in general, I feel that the Nord 2T can possibly eke out slightly better battery life compared to the iQOO Neo 6. Now, that is where all the similarities end. The design of the Nord 2T is also very similar to the Nord 2, except for that reshaped camera module. Now, of course, the camera module juts out a lot from the rear, and therefore the table wobble will be a lot. But more importantly, you get these two massive rings in which all the three cameras are placed in a very weird fashion, which I don't think looks good at all. Just take a look at these two. You can tell that the iQOO Neo 6 has a far better looking camera module compared to the OnePlus Nord 2T. Now, since the Nord 2T has a slightly smaller footprint, considering that it has a slightly smaller display. The in-hand feel of the phone is fantastic. It's not like the iQOO Neo 6 is bad, but the OnePlus Nord 2T is even better. And what I like about the Nord 2T is that there's this shiny, glimmery sort of texture on the plastic back on the rear, and it does feel very good to hold and use. I do also like this very dark sort of dual shade gradient color on the iQOO Neo 6 as well. Design is subjective. I think both are very good looking phones. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comment section below. Now, as for the ports and the buttons, what's same on both these phones is that you get a volume rocker and a power button, both of which offer great tactile feedback. You get a Type-C 2.0 port at the bottom, no headphone jack of course, and you get a SIM card tray where you can install 2 nano SIM cards, and there's a stereo speaker setup where you get the single speaker at the bottom and the earpiece acts as the secondary speaker. Now, talking about the speaker setup, you do not get Dolby Atmos, but you do get support for Dirac audio on the OnePlus Nord 2T. What I noticed is that the Nord 2T is definitely louder, but the iQOO Neo 6 definitely sounds more fuller, more dynamic, and it offers more clarity. In fact, why don't you take a listen for yourself and let me know if my finding is kind of true. Although I'm glad that OnePlus with the Nord 2T hasn't removed the alert slider, the iconic alert slider, which I absolutely love. But there are a couple of functional advantages on the iQOO Neo 6 as well. It comes with IP52 rating and it has got an infrared blaster as well. See, design-wise, I would say I have no problem with the iQOO Neo 6 or the OnePlus Nord 2T. Both are actually very good looking phones, and you can pick one according to what you prefer. Now, as for the display on the OnePlus Nord 2T, you get a 6.43-inch AMOLED panel with 90Hz refresh rate. Of course, it's smaller than the iQOO Neo 6. Now, the bezels and the chin around the display are not too big either, which is a very good thing. In fact, that's even true for the iQOO Neo 6's 6.62-inch panel on the front. But what the iQOO Neo 6 does better is that you get a center punch hole, and the punch hole on the center is actually much tinier compared to the corner punch hole on the OnePlus Nord 2T. Now, on the displays of both these phones, you get support for HDR, and you can play back HDR videos on both the OnePlus Nord 2T and the iQOO Neo 6, but you get Netflix HDR playback only on the iQOO Neo 6. What I also noticed during my testing is that the color accuracy of the Neo 6 is better than the OnePlus Nord 2T. The HDR brightness is also higher compared to the OnePlus Nord 2T, and the peak brightness even in regular usage is generally higher, but it's only slightly higher, so it won't really make a difference when you see them side by side. The OnePlus Nord 2T is not too bad when it comes to brightness levels. Now, you must be wondering that you generally get a 120Hz refresh rate panel in this price range, but the Nord 2T offers only 90Hz. But you know what, in general usage, the difference is barely negligible to the naked eye, and therefore I didn't see any difference in fluidity between using the OnePlus Nord 2T and the iQOO Neo 6. Now, for what it is worth, the OnePlus Nord 2T has an advantage with the Corning Gorilla Glass 5 protection. The iQOO Neo 6 has shot sensation UP glass, and actually Vivo claims that it is almost as good as Corning's solution, where you get similar levels of scratch protection and drop protection. Now, both the phones, considering they have an OLED panel, they also come with an in-display fingerprint scanner, very fast to unlock. I couldn't tell the difference between the unlock times of these two devices, but I have a small gripe, and that is the fact that these in-display fingerprint scanners are placed slightly too low for my liking. And when it comes to the haptic feedback, I think that the OnePlus Nord 2 has a slightly tighter haptic feedback and slightly robust haptic feedback compared to the iQOO Neo 6. Now, the Nord 2T's camera setup has the same kind of specs as the Nord 2, so I'm not getting into the details. So let's just jump right into the comparison with the iQOO Neo 6 and take a look at the samples, and along the way I'll also talk about the specs of the phone. Now, starting with the detail retention of the 50 megapixel Sony IMX766 primary sensor on the Nord 2T is way better than the iQOO Neo 6's 64 megapixel Samsung GW1P sensor. I noticed sharper textures and finer details at 100% crop in the Nord 2T sample. Colors are more natural looking in the Nord 2T sample. The iQOO Neo 6 tends to make the reds, the greens, and the blues slightly more vibrant. For example, in this sample, the reds are deeper in the patch on the Pachinko book cover. However, the iQOO Neo 6 does HDR better. You can see how it has managed to control the highlights on the building peeping through the two curtains. Also, in the second HDR sample, I noticed that the Nord 2T had softer textures compared to the non-HDR sample. I think I have a theory. I'll come back to that in a bit. Now, if you're shooting friends and family, the Nord 2T offers closer to natural facial tones. In fact, even against the light, the Nord Note 2T doesn't have any of the tone matte look that iQOO adds to the face. But if you can fix the facial tone in post, you will notice that the iQOO Neo 6 not only offers better dynamic range but also sharper details in the face against the light. A crisper image with better dynamic range always wins in my books compared to better color accuracy, because that can always be fixed in post. Now the same is true for portraits. The Neo 6 offers sharper textures on the face, even if the edge detection is equally good on both. Now remember how I was telling you that the HDR pictures look soft on the Note 2T, and now the portrait is also looking soft. And my theory here is that multi-stack processing on this phone is not doing sharpness as well as it should, and that's something that I've generally noticed with MediaTek phones. Now in selfies, truth be told, the only difference between the Neo 6 and the Note 2T is the facial tone captured by the individual phones. OnePlus cannot control the reds in the skin, and Neo 6 does a fantastic job here. Against the light, it is evident that the iQOO Neo 6 is better. The edge detection in selfie portraits is equally good on both. Again, the Neo 6 would be my pick for accurate facial tones. So yeah, I think that the Neo 6 is a better phone for selfies overall compared to the Note 2T, but the Note 2T is not that bad either. Now both the phones have an 8-megapixel ultra-wide secondary camera each. The Note 2T offers sharper details for sure, but the color science consistency is better on the iQOO Neo 6. In low-light shots with primary cameras, the iQOO Neo 6 does offer a brighter exposure because it goes for a higher ISO here, and in that it loses out the realism and the dynamism of the scene captured well by the Note 2T. In any case, I've always liked OnePlus's nightscape mode, although when it gets really dark, the Neo 6 has a more usable image here. Ultra-wide low-light shots are also brighter and well exposed on the Neo 6. Now while the Neo 6 doesn't have a night mode for selfies, it does a good job of capturing the accurate selfie here, especially when it comes to colors. But the Note 2T benefits from the dedicated night mode and generally captures a sharper image. Now as for video recording, only the Neo 6 can shoot 4K 60 FPS videos using the rear camera, albeit without stabilization. 4K 30 FPS video stabilization and dynamic range is better on the Neo 6, but sound recording and colors are more accurate on the Note 2T. The details are almost identical, so you take the pick. Do let me know in the comment section below what you thought about the image quality, the image stabilization and the sound recording as I pan around slightly. Do let me know in the comment section below what you thought about the image quality, the image stabilization and the sound recording as I pan around slightly. 1080p 30 FPS video recording quality, stabilization, dynamic range, sound quality, everything is better on the Neo 6. Stabilization where the OnePlus does not. Stabilization where the OnePlus does not. Overall, both the camera setups on both these phones actually do a fairly decent job. In some areas, the Note 2T wins. In the other areas, the iQOO Neo 6 wins. So we'll consider it a tie out here. These are possibly one of the two best camera phones under rupees 30,000. Not the best, but at least in the top 5. Now coming to the software, the OnePlus Note 2T is running on OS 12 based on Android 12.1, and during my review period I also noticed that it got the latest June security patch. OnePlus has also promised 2 years of software updates and 3 years of security updates, so I feel that OnePlus is on the right track, but we'll have to wait and watch. The Neo 6 also comes with OS 12 with Android 12, and of course iQOO has also promised 2 years of software updates and 3 years of security updates, and when I last checked it had the May security patch running on it. Now as for the software experience, you get a couple of third-party apps pre-installed on the OnePlus Note 2T. I saw Netflix and Spotify pre-installed. It's a clean setup compared to FunTouch OS, which installs a lot of trashy third-party apps. In fact, I generally feel that the Oxygen OS experience is slightly more refined compared to FunTouch OS. But yeah, I do feel that Oxygen OS is no more like the Oxygen OS of the old and looks a lot like Color OS. I'm glad at least the personalizations and the customization still exist, so that's definitely a good thing. Now coming to the conclusion, the problem with the OnePlus Note 2T is that it's more of a side grade than an upgrade, and it gets clobbered by the competition. I would any day recommend the iQOO Neo 6 over the OnePlus Note 2T. And a more affordable phone like the recently launched Poco F4 offers better performance and a far better multimedia experience too, considering that it has a better display and a better set of speakers. See, in isolation, the Note 2T is definitely not a bad phone. It works well, it does the job well, but then again, I feel that OnePlus is now just coasting on its goodwill. And the oppification of OnePlus is making very mundane products like the OnePlus Note 2T. Clearly, it seems like OnePlus's idea out here is to use the power of its brand identity, couple that with hyper-aggressive marketing, and voila, many phones will sell. While that works for business, good OnePlus phones are rare to come by these days, which is why I'm sort of looking forward to the OnePlus 10T, because the OnePlus Note 2T has disappointed me, and the 10T will come with the Snapdragon 8 Plus Gen 1 chip, which was really great on the Asus ROG Phone 6. So a value for money OnePlus phone with a great chip is something that I'm waiting for. Hopefully it'll change things around. In fact, there was a recent tweet that said that it crossed an Antutu score of 1.13 million. So that's something to look forward to. You know what, OnePlus? After all of this, it just feels that you're just somebody that I used to know. So that's it from me. That's my detailed review of the OnePlus Nord 2T and comparison against the iQOO Neo 6. Let me know in the comment section below what you thought about it. Until next time, this is Aishad signing off. Keep tracking and stay safe.